everybody? Welcome to Talk Heathen. It is Sunday, May 30th, 2021. I am Jmike. Alongside me is my brother, not brother. I don't know. I'll let you decide. Mr. Christy Powell. How you doing, Christy?
Hey, howdy. I got 9 hours of sleep and 2 bowls of Lucky Charms in me, so I'm shot out of a cannon. I'm ready to talk
Nice.
heathen.
That's got a lot of sugar in it, I'm pretty sure. So you should
Yeah,
be.
so I may crash. Like, if you want to call in, I'd say call now while I'm like up and jumped for it, because I might get a little less patient towards the end.
Yeah. And actually, speaking of, we do need callers. So if you are a theist, atheist, anyone, please call in. We'd love to talk to you. Talk about anything, everything under the sun. But just want to give a reminder that Talk Heathen is a product of the ACA, a 501c3 organization dedicated to the promotion of positive atheism and the separation of church and state, or religion and government. If you love this show, there's a lot of ways you can support us. The best way, or the easiest way, I would say, is just to hit the subscribe button and the like button. That really helps us in the algorithm. You can also hit the join button under the video to become a member. And you can also help us out on patreon.com, which is Patreon/Talk Heathen to me. And you can become a patron and potentially become a top 5 patron if you want to outbid the other ones there. And then if this is too much hair for you, if you don't like all this type of hair on your screen, I understand. And so you can actually check out all the atheist experience, the ACA podcasts at tiny.cc/AEN podcasts. And you can take that in the car or wherever, gym, wherever you'd like. Gym might be a weird way to listen to debates like these and conversations, but you can do it. It's there. We also have a fan-run Facebook group at facebook.com/talkheathenfg. This one's really important to me to speak about, because the only reason I'm even in the chair I'm in was joining communities like that and talking to people that I didn't know. I started co-hosting and started a show with a friend, the Atheist Roundtable, back in the day. I won't say back in the day, like a year ago. And I did a
long time on the internet.
Yeah,
right?
it's a long time on way back in the day, with the early ages. And we didn't know each other. Podcast that I do on the side, I didn't know the person at all. I just reached out in a community, and I could say that a lot of these people have become my best friends. So please reach out to people within those communities, especially in Discord as well, which we have the ACD Discord, another fan run product that is at tiny.cc/ACA Discord. And you can actually join us after the show there to have a conversation if you'd like. And finally, but not last, we have the new version of the Nonprofit Show, which airs after the show at 3 p.m., 4 p.m. my time. So it's a little weird for me to say that. But 3 p.m. Central. But anyway, Christy, how's it going? I know we were talking about some philosophy and stuff back behind the scenes there for a little bit. I think we kind of struck on some common ground there.
Yeah, I feel like they paired us up because of the obvious jokes. Like for that podcast audience that's jogging through the park or is in the gym or whatever else, if you close your eyes and like just picture what an atheist is supposed to look like stereotypically, you got one of us. Now make that person a little bit more queer, and you got the rest of us. Like we're very much in that loop, but. Philosophically, as a therapist myself, I'm an LPC here in Austin. And so my philosophy is always kind of rooted in how to be a better human, how to be happier and healthier, and how to perhaps avoid anxiety or decrease depression and increase contentment and all of these kinds of things. So it's very directed. And so we were just kind of contrasting that with the more philosophical, or the more like maybe logic-based types of philosophy, and I guess just trying to maintain that dynamic tension, because they both have a lot of value and they're obviously connected to one another. But if you lose sight of like what do we actually do with this information, I feel like it starts to lose some of its utility.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we hit. Was I love philosophy in a sense, but I push back in a lot of aspects of like what strength certain arguments have. I'm not really high on the aspect that we can come to certain cosmological or metaphysical truths just by simply sitting in the armchair and thinking about it.
Sure.
I think you actually need experience of the world in that way. And so I know a lot of people in the philosophy realm are probably cringing to hear me say this, but I totally lean empiricist. I grant what you call, for those that don't know, a priori knowledge, which is like deductive inference rules, math, basically just things that we don't have. You don't necessarily need experience of the world. But I never really understood how someone could think that has as much metaphysical weight, while it brings in more baggage, especially what you call ontologically, which is, the nature of things, right? So now you're answering something with more baggage that you don't have experience of in the world. And those kinds of things, for me, it has value in some sense, but at the same time, it's what can you repeat? What can you verify? Because for what I care about, at least in terms of that, is what we do in the lab. It seems to get more answers, and we can combine that with deduction and all those types of things. But I think, we kind of hit a common ground there, was that, there's utility. It's good to understand your moral framework and things like that. But at the same time, it's not probably the best idea to be as pedantic and lose either your audience in a debate quickly, or just go on about something where people don't have any idea what you're talking about. So I think the plain language and things like that help out way more than I think some people who are in that realm would let on to be.
And there is value in consistently and constantly dividing these things into smaller and smaller ideas, and wanting to like really operationally define all of your terms and make sure that these conversations are rooted in like a sophisticated understanding of everything that we're discussing. I appreciate that sort of laboratory philosophy, but we also need to be able to do something with it, and we need to recognize that like shows like this are not necessarily about proving or disproving the existence of God in any kind of meaningful way. I see all these TV commercials for like finding Bigfoot at 7:00. See the latest, and I'm like, if anybody fucking found Bigfoot,
show's over.
You're not going to find out about it at 7:00 by watching some like third-tier cable show. I recognize that the conversations that we're having here in many ways have been had before, but what we're looking to do more so than to like proof our syllogisms or whatever else is to help people understand some of these concepts, and then hopefully be able to use that in a voting booth, be able to use that in their relationships and their home life and all of these kinds of things. It's valuable to be able to understand that high-minded stuff, but it's also important to be able to just live your life as a human being. And not every human being has the opportunity to memorize great French philosophy or whatever else.
Yeah. Or a lot of it's hard to read through like Kant or Hume. You like with Hume, you got just so many semicolons and commas that it's like, dude, what is you need? No, I'm not. I cannot decipher through half this sometimes, but it's like it's all valuable. It's good, but it does take work. And I think that's the thing that I do love about philosophy and people that get into it, is you really do have to put in the work and really understand the concepts, and there's nothing, nothing wrong with that in any way. But I would add, if someone can assert, say, some cosmological argument, say the Kalam, or some modal ontological argument, or whatever it might be that they're using, it seems that I can keep the same variables in a lot of the cases and just plug in some other thing. I know some people use, like pantheism, naturalistic pantheism. You take away some of the properties and you have a more simpler answer that has a wider explanatory scope. I could substitute it just simply for naturalism, but I wouldn't do that, right? I wouldn't just go, here's my a priori assessment or my deductive assessment on why naturalism is true. I would show the empirical basis of why I think it's the case, because, we start at a level of really no knowledge and we have to work there. Whereas I think a lot of people start from this kind of top down approach of, I have all the knowledge, or let me start with the God and work my way back down. You can justify anything that way. It's not hard to. So
I mean, it's so psychologically expensive to give up a belief in God. You know, you
Sure.
are losing your access to seeing your dead loved ones. You're losing your access to eternal life. You're losing your access to a perfect plan for your life. And now all of a sudden you have to make decisions based on the fact that your decisions kind of don't matter. Like whatever meaning they have, you have to give to them. It's really expensive, and it makes sense that people want to cling on to these beliefs and that they are willing to really twist themselves into knots to find ways to justify it and validate it. And you can do some interesting things with that and develop some very interesting thoughts. And, that's kind of what philosophy is in a lot of ways. But ultimately, you have to kind of ask yourself why. What is the value in that? If there truly was a perfect, all-knowing, all-powerful, loving, and authoritative God that wanted to be a part of our lives and help run the show here on earth, whether that's a Christian God or whatever else, why would we need to sit down and draw out these like elaborate syllogisms to prove it? Like, why would we use this completely different form of reasoning than what we apply in our daily lives? And
Sure.
if that God wanted to have a relationship with us, why wouldn't we have a relationship that isn't based on these like very strange sort of either mystical or overly intellectual types of connections?
Yeah, it's like why does it get to kind of sidestep the rigorous evaluation of things that we actually prove and know, right? Like why is it that my framework gets to go through these really rigorous criterions of verification, falsification, peer review, and then someone gets to sidestep it by, well, I'll just kind of think about it. And I don't want to downplay a lot of the arguments because they're great, but a lot of cases it's, that's why I weigh on that side of how I gain knowledge. But I guess before we take a call, I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned the kind of the psychological state of people, the cost that they have to kind of give up as a therapist. I'm sure you kind of would you say you have a better understanding of that now, of why that's the case? It's not really a universal thing, I would assume. It was probably different in a lot of cases, but could you kind of elucidate on that?
Yeah, I mean, exploring and understanding psychology and becoming a psychotherapist myself was definitely integral to my losing religion or leaving religion behind, because you start to recognize all of the little tricks and all of the little ways that we sort of distract ourselves or force religion to work. And not only that, I've said before on this show that kind of the phenomenology of understanding hypnosis and some of these like different aspects of just the way our brains work and the ways that they can be manipulated and tricked. That to me was the final straw that made me go from, okay, I don't understand how Jesus could be real, but like I'm supposed to, and I don't know how to make that work, and how do I make it fit, and just trying really hard to make that puzzle come together.
Yeah.
Well, once I began to understand just the way that human brains operate and the way that we take in information and the inherently flawed nature of that, there just felt like there was no reason to explore those things anymore. And so, in going through that process, I've begun to understand a lot more about religious trauma and the particular ways that religion can hurt folks. Some of those things may seem really obvious, and to some people they are, but there are other ideas that are much more, I don't know, insidious or kind of hidden. Like just because you come to a conclusion and decide that, okay, there never was a God, and so there never was a Jesus, and so therefore I don't need to feel guilty about masturbation or whatever other little hangups we have, it doesn't mean that you just like automatically flip a switch and delete all of those old assumptions. And so many of them hound us for our entire lives, really. And so working to be a part of that solution really kind of, I don't know, radicalized me, I suppose, in wanting to change this world.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you kind of get that. I can imagine why it would radicalize you in that way. 100%. That's definitely something. Let me put it this way. I feel like you and Shannon Q in a show would be just so kick ass.
Yeah.
That
I think I actually hosted Shannon on my show before
did?
she had done any other ACA stuff. So
Oh,
I
awesome.
think I don't know if she would say this, but I think I can take credit for maybe introducing Shannon Q
Nice.
to the ACA multiverse of things. So
I love. I would say I love things in neuroscience and psychology. Cannot speak on the subjects to save my life. But yeah, that would be you guys would be the people I'd be taking some notes from. That's for sure. Do you want to go ahead and I think we have a caller. Do you want to get to our first call?
yeah, absolutely. You want to jump in with Gaither in North Carolina?
Yeah, let's do that. And also, by the way, please call in. We need more callers. So if you're a theist, again, please call in.
Love to hear from you. All right, Gaither, are you hearing us? What can we do for you?
Hi, who am I speaking with? I didn't watch. I just called straight in.
Sure. Well, this is Christy Powell from Secular Sexuality, Thursday nights at 7, and you're on with Jmike.
Oh. Okay. I'm going to tell you right now. You'll have to corral me sometimes. I know I'm verbose because I have this bad habit of thinking, and I try to curtail it in every walk of life. So I'm going to try to do this in bullet points. Interrupt me whenever you need to.
Sure. Yeah, I can appreciate being a little nervous. What's the bottom line that you're trying to get to, and then you can kind of walk us through it.
Okay. I would like to say something that may help people like me to go, yeah, that's me. I need to go there. I need to question this. I need to question what has not been proven. So that's my thing. I just want to say something that might help people. And it's frustrating because I'm in severe poverty. All my life lived in poverty. I have really no outlets. And I've tried to get involved with activist groups, and I think the pattern is, well, he's poor. He can't do anything. It's not like he's going to be able to show up in Raleigh for the thing. Somebody will have to pick him up, take. There's just no value because there's no money to be free to go around. So that's kind of my frustration. But what happened to me, again, bullet points. I'm 53. I was in a Christian school for 1 year. I was saved / horrified at the age of 7. I didn't receive faith. I received fear of hell. It was the most traumatic experience I had to that time. I mean, it was terrifying. I experienced an elation, a fearful elation, just panic. And I thought, well, that's the Holy Spirit. And if that's the Holy Spirit, and I'm in trouble because I don't think I can accept this. And so I lived, okay, bullet points. I go to 7 years old, 7 or 8. I have this vision. One night I wake up and I look at the I stuttered sometimes. I had a stroke.
No worries.
Air conditioner. I was looking. For some reason, I woke up, rubbed my eyes, looked at the air conditioner. Some brown smoke is pouring from it. I thought, what's wrong? It takes the form of what we think looks like Jesus in a darkened room with a cover on his head, and you can't see his face. He holds his hands out. I think, I don't know how I got this, but he reads minds. I believe that. And I'm praying to him telepathically. If that's you, tell me it's you. I'll come to you. Mom and Dad will get over my death. I'm ready to go. Life was that bad at 7.
Sure.
And when I said that telepathically, immediately after I said it, his arms withdrew, turned into smoke, went back into the air conditioner. And from then on in my life, I believed that Satan had appeared in my room to try to get me. And that's horrifying.
That's a tough thing to carry.
The Christian,
What was the
yeah,
what was the thing that helped pull you out of that you were hoping to maybe share with our audience today? What was the final straw or the magic key that helped turn that lock for you?
Yes. What I believed and why. I believed there was a God. I suspected that it was the only God I was subjected to, the God of Israel. So I knew. I mean, I was just totally convinced there is a God, and I suspected it was you. And now I'm repeating myself. I'm wasting time. I dropped.
No, you're good. So,
sorry.
So you had. So I guess I want to back up a little bit and ask you, when you had the experience, you thought it was Jesus, and then you were convinced it was Satan. You clearly deciphered between two things, and then you later on decided that that wasn't the case. So what was like the process at which you kind of went through that? Like how did you, like Christy said, how did you progress out of that state?
All right. Well, my belief went from mom and dad, but other people in the family said Jesus is real and the Bible's real and Israel's over there and this is history and all this happened. I went from that to looking into it to verify it for myself without any help, because my family, I hate to say it, but they criticized me for asking questions throughout my entire life. And so I'm all by myself. I'm trying with dyslexia and other learning disabilities and possibly a cognitive disorder on that. I'm trying to find out the truth. And this goes from 7 years old to the time I'm 47. I'm listening, and by then I'm believing because I'm convinced there's a God by itself all along, and I'm starting to doubt that it's the God of Israel. And then one night, it's just like, to me, it's real magic. It's, so to speak, I'm listening to the Epic of Gilgamesh, and I'm hearing this familiar flood story that's much more interesting, much more detailed. The story,
and like 1,000 years older, I think.
Pardon?
Well, I was just saying that I believe that story predates the biblical flood story by like 1,000 years. But anyway, so how did that pull you out? Because
of verifications. I hope you can follow. If you can't follow this, interrupt me, please.
Sure.
I believe Jesus because I believe the prophets. The prophets, their validity is on Moses. Moses' validity is on his claim of having a personal relationship with God, even seeing him. Now, the stories that are accredited in Moses, those stories are from Babylon and Sumer and Acadia or Akkad. I can't get that word right. But you know what I mean.
From Sumer, it sounds like you did.
Babylon, second Babylon.
I was gonna say, it sounds like it clicked through some aspects of doing actual research and understanding that. But what exactly got you how did you decipher the connection? Is that part of it? Because I mean, you had an experience at which you thought was supernatural, and then at one point you conclude it wasn't. So was it purely just the kind of looking and validating like historical aspects and things like that don't line up with the Bible? That got you there? Because my question would be, you still had the experience, and I'd be wanting to know what you decided or came to the conclusion that what that spirit experience was.
I believe that Gaither terminated the call.
Oh, did he?
So, yeah, if he can get back on the line, wants to give us a call back, I would certainly be interested to hear sort of where that was leading to. But Jmike, I'm curious about your reaction to it, because while we didn't quite hear maybe what that last straw or what that magic key actually looked like, it seemed like it was a lot of different experiences around, I guess just phenomenology, like his own like personal reaction or experience to things.
Sure. Yeah, I kind of had a sense of hopefully I pronounce it right. Pareidolia, right? I think is the term for it, which would be essentially we're pattern seeking, and so you can see patterns in almost anything. You see this in clouds is like the prime example you're gonna probably go to. And so yeah, it does seem that, because what are you basing it off of when you see Jesus? Well, it's your mental state, right? It's your phenomenological state at which you've kind of deciphered off of what you think the Jesus, or in this case, looks like, and then you have that to determine the whether or not it's Satan. So I guess my main thing is, what do you relegate the actual experience to? Because, and clearly you had an experience, and so I'd be most interested in one, how you determine that wasn't the case, like you said, for viewers that could connect to it, and then two, like what you think it actually even was, or if anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Gaither, I think we have you back on the line. You hearing us?
Yes, I'll have to rewatch this to hear what was said, but
yeah, well, no worries. We really were just kind of curious about what that final step was for you. The thing that sort of changed one experience that made it feel like there was a God, or that you were perhaps being attacked by Satan, to suddenly letting that veil drop. You made it sound like there was kind of like one particular moment or experience, and I would love to be able to, if not replicate that, then at least share it.
It was, and I'm going to speak metaphorically here as much as I can to draw the picture of it. When I heard the story of Enki, Utnapishtim, the flood, and as I'm hearing it, my skin is tingling. I'm thinking, this isn't true. A real God does not lie and take someone else's story from 1,500 years ago, and other people's stories from way before that, to tell his own story.
A real God should at least be able to write his own fan fiction.
You're right. Yeah, I've heard that before. That's a non-verbose way of saying it. And it was, as I'm listening to it, I'm elated, and moments passed, and I'm like, we don't choose what we believe. I don't choose. I'm convinced. The belief, clarity came in. It was overwhelming. Things come into my mind like fast, like Neo being plugged in, and in 10 minutes he's going to know judo. That's what it was like. It's all of a sudden reality. All the things that I was suspicious of, all the things I thought, all of that just lined up. This is not real. This is no different than any other religion in the Mesopotamian line of 4,000, 5,000 years of people groups and religions. And I was free. And the first thing I thought, the first thing I checked, and here's where a little bit of fear come in. What am I now? Am I moral? Do I still want to love people? And these thoughts are happening obviously in my mind, and they're going, in seconds. 1, 2, 3, they're happening fast. Sure. Who am I? Do I still have morality? And one of the things I did was I imagined rape, murder, beating a child, and I imagined this stuff, and I was like, I'm not different. Nothing changed. I'm free. And I was really free. And I told everybody. I told, damn getting fired. I told my boss, damn the family turning against me. I told them, this isn't real. And the reason it hit me was because the reason I believed at that time was evidence. If you can't give me evidence of Jesus and the prophets and Moses and the history, if the evidence isn't there, then I'm doubting. But when you present evidence that is against it, oh, now we're beyond not believing. Now I know that God of Israel is not true. It's not real. And my panic attacks went from approximately 100, maybe 150 a year to 1 a year for the past 5 years. My panic attacks.
Congratulations on that. I mean, this feels like a really meaningful revelation. And the last thing that I want to do as like a stranger on the internet is come and tell you about your experience. But I may be able to shine a little bit of light on what you were going through. Like I talked about earlier, it's really expensive to give up your belief in God. Like there's a lot that goes with that. And so even as you may have noticed over time some things that made you question, some things that planted seeds of doubt, we are trained to ignore that doubt and to push it away and to avoid it as much as we possibly can. And especially where trauma is involved, the traumatic experience of believing that you were going to hell or that Satan is after you, these childhood fears that are really deeply seated and are just integral to everyday life because they're just everywhere. Every single thought is supposed to be taken captive. And so these things can get really, really deeply rooted. And it sounds like you had an opportunity to all of a sudden walk away from those things. And it wasn't like it was like just a magical thing that suddenly happened. Rather, when we use that expression, the straw that broke the camel's back, we're talking about one straw, but also we're talking about a giant pile of straw or like a whole bunch of weight that the camel was already carrying. So I can imagine you having that moment of sort of radical acceptance where you had been carrying around these thoughts and these ideas for a really long time. And then when they finally are allowed to be sort of viewed in a conscious way and actually accepted by your mind, it can be a pretty dramatic experience. It can be pretty overwhelming. And the fact that it gave you this sort of new lease on life is really beautiful and not overwhelmingly shocking to me. So congrats on all of that.
Yeah, it was. That's exactly what it was. It was all those little things. Quickly, when I was 14, I thought I heard the voice of God tell me, "You will have nothing until you come to me." And it was nice, pleasant, just like a father, plain. No, no over the top, just you'll have nothing till you can. And it was loud enough to rattle your toenails. I asked other people like family and neighbors, "Hey, did y'all hear anything yesterday, around lunchtime, something loud?" No, not really. Nobody heard it but me, but it was shaking my skin. Things like that. And another one.
So how do you explain? And that's where I'm curious. How do you explain those events now? It was just all in your head. Like, what do you think is the best explanation for that?
Well, I don't have the understanding to explain it. I would have to put that to Shannon Q. She can fully
understand. Yeah. But so you would say it's just a product of your mind, right? And kind of those beliefs reinforcing some state in your mind that's going to have some bias or that makes sense. And I'm curious because my past experience isn't like that at all. The only thing I was really convinced of at any time in that realm was more in the spiritual realm, whatever that even means, right? More like the new age type of stuff. And so I've had it to a degree, but never to that degree. I haven't had the fear of hell or any of those types of things. So it's always curious to me from your phenomenological state, or just how you think of what, how you decipher that. Because I'm someone that I stopped believing in the things that I believed in because I never actually had an experience. I just realized I'm just believing in things that I want to believe. And so I've never had those types of experiences. And so it's curious to me. I like talking to people when they have those, because I always want to assume it's in the brain, but I always leave open the possibility. I could never shut that off. But since I'm not you, it's interesting to kind of hear what you thought. And I'm glad that you kind of recognize, hey, I don't know, but I do know it doesn't line up to the beliefs that I was holding being reflective of the reality at which I live in. And so that's a huge step to take. Not a lot of people can do that.
In a few words, here's again, I would love to hear Shannon talk about this, but for me, the appearance of the fake Jesus and the real Satan, so to speak, in my bedroom, I had just woke up. Something woke me up, and I'm just rubbing my eyes, and I look, and it's something that was produced in my own mind, brain, not mind. Mind is a concept, brain is a thing. It was chemicals in my brain. It was fear from this hell of religion that I just got in. So of course I had a vision of Jesus, and of course I tried to communicate with him. And when he or it didn't respond correctly, of course I thought it was Satan tricking me. So of course I went through my entire life thinking that Satan appeared to me in my bedroom, and I won. I made the right decision. I made a deal. Hey, if it's you, tell me, I'll come to you. And withdrew the hands, turned into smoke, went away, and freaked me out. And there was another one. I'll say this, not the whole story. I'll just bullet point it. There was we were talking about we were in a prayer group one morning before church, and one of the guys, home group leader, really liked me, and he knew I was very weak. And
Well,
hit the home button.
May have lost him again. I'll just say, as we're kind of trying to get to the root of some of these experiences, that it's worth remembering that, nothing that we see or experience is like capital T truth. Like I wear glasses, and they're always like at least a little bit dirty, no matter how hard I try to keep them clean. But that's always like a little bit of a filter between me and the world. But then, the information that comes into my eyes is being corrected by these lenses so I can see a little bit better, but it's still not like perfect 20/20 vision. And then it's being interpreted by all of these nerves throughout my body, which are going to be impacted by my mood, by my sense of safety, by my resources, and all of these things. And then all of that is getting filtered in through my personality and sort of my beliefs and all of these things. So everything we take in is a little bit suspect. But these experiences, like the ones that Gaither is describing, can be really, really powerful. And especially when there is trauma involved, our kind of connection to reality, maybe the cleanliness of our glasses, so to speak, can get a little murky. That's not to say that these things don't feel real and that they don't actually have like some real meaning and value. We just have to remember that meaning is meaning that we're giving to it rather than something that is empirical or outside of ourselves. Is that all track?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And I feel like it kind of hits on what he was saying about starting from that position. I mean, when you have that experience, you're going to kind of retrofit, what you've already started with as the explanation, which is the problem. If I just start with this top-down approach that, if it's God or whatever I believe in, then that's what you're going to try to fit the answer in, as opposed to the bottom-up approach. And I don't want to have to look like I'm patting myself on the back or something, but I think I was lucky enough to have more of that bottom-down approach on things after I came out of my spot to go, okay, well, I can I was really into believing anything at that point that just made sense, just intuitively. Which isn't really enough. And so from a bottom approach where I go, well, how does my epistemology even start? Like, how do I decipher things, or what do we use? What's the method? Once I really started thinking about those things, it helped it click for me. And I feel like that's something that's like not taught to people. Like, you have to kind of discover it, or have someone point it out to you. And like you said, that has to then be filtered out through, your own biases again, and all those types of stuff. So it's kind of like this endless circle of filtering it through yourself, where you're going to deny it or retrofit the answer you've already put there at the beginning. And so,
and that doesn't mean that like our eyes don't work or that they don't matter. It just means that we have to see, capital T truth as a aspiration rather than a destination. Like, we're never truly achieving it, and we're only deluding ourselves when we say that we are. And so it's there's value, I think, in recognizing that we all have some spots on our lenses and that we can work to clean them. But to just act as if all the information we're taking in is somehow like pure data and perfect and intellectually verifiable, I feel like is really missing the reality of what it means to be a human being in a lot of ways.
Sure. And to the best way that we know how to get to knowledge. Just making models, science, these types of things where we could list hundreds of different models of different things, right? Or especially in like physics, like cosmological models, we could cite a lot of different ones that are adding infinities and negative infinities, one that contradicts those types of ideas, right? We could do these things, but that's the brilliant part about the method, right? Is that it's tentative and that it's subject to discovery. Like, that's what's so beautiful to me about it, is that like you have the aspect of discovery always. There's no matter what you believe in, you always have that falsification right behind it to go, hey, something falsifies this claim, right? Something shows that this claim isn't true, and I can generate predictions to show that it is true, and I kind of have those juxtaposed, right? Then you can find a discovery you can feel confident about, and it wouldn't mean anything for your knowledge to grow. We don't start with it all, and that'll get back into another probably a rant of mine with philosophy. It's kind of starting like thinking that you should be able to navigate through these things already. I think that's a bullshit approach, because I think, like, to be honest about it is to say, no, I'm trying to look into my meta ethics, or what you would call your moral system, right? I'm trying to look into my epistemology, or how I gain knowledge. I'm trying to understand the ontology of things, or what the nature of things are, right? Like, none of that is just de facto kind of given to you.
Mm-hmm.
And it only is that case when you start with some belief. And in the case of the last caller, how hard is that for you to shed that when it's just baked in there already? It's really hard to shed that. Looks like we got a bunch more callers now. So
yeah, we're pretty deep into the show with just the one, but now we've got a bunch of folks to choose from.
Yeah.
Is there any place you want to go first?
Let's see. I'll let you decide again. I'm gonna let the guest decide. I'm gonna be nice.
Sure, fair enough.
I'm gonna let you decide.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's talk to our buddy Johnny P and see what he's got going on today. Johnny, what can we do for you?
Hey guys. Long time fan, first time caller on the show. And I had a question for Christy. And I don't know if this came through with the call screener. I will say that I've got you on speakerphone using a Bluetooth device. I'm in a place with a lot of background
noise.
Hang
up on him.
Yeah.
No banana phones.
YouTube's on full volume, and I'm watching the screen. No, but my question for Christy is this: when you've got a client who, like Christy, when you've got a client who is, let's say, coming to you with some religious trauma, but they haven't identified it as a religious trauma, right? But you, in the course of your therapy, feel like, well, they're talking a lot about religion. They're talking a lot about expectations from that religion, dogma from that religion. And it really is tying back into maybe their identity or their psychological state, something that's really causing them a lot of pain. How do you broach that topic? How do you ever say, hey, this could be, maybe it's your belief that might be the source of it. And if you shed the belief, I know you have certain restrictions on what you can do in that way, but how do you address that issue with potential clients or patients?
Yeah, I think the ethical considerations here are at once incredibly complicated and convoluted, of course, but also perhaps more simple than you would think, because the goal is never really to come in and like pick apart somebody's religion or somebody's beliefs, but to merely ask the question and kind of highlight, like, you're having this concern. Can we talk about it and see what sort of conclusions people come to? A lot of this, though, is kind of dependent on self-selection. I tell everybody who comes into a consultation with me as a therapist that the most important part of therapy, and we see this in research, I've seen this in my own experiences and in the experiences of my client, the most important part of therapy is just the relationship. It's whether or not your therapist feels like somebody that you could connect with. And so I always tell people, if I remind you of like an asshole brother-in-law or like a boss that you couldn't stand, like, let's not work together, because this isn't going to be very effective. So what that effectively means is that because I have sort of branded myself as an atheist in a public way, which a lot of therapists would not do, and that I honestly did kind of agonize over before making that choice. But now that I have sort of put that out there, people are self-selecting based on that. And I do work with theists. I do work with people from a lot of different belief systems, whether they are questioning their religious beliefs or whether they are perfectly comfortable with their religious beliefs but are wanting to focus on other issues, that's totally great. I'm a professional and we can do that together. I'm very upfront about my beliefs and who I am. It's all right there on my website, and a quick Google search away to find my name associated with the atheist community of Austin and things like that. So all of that to say, when folks come to me, they sort of have an understanding of sort of my value system, and I don't force that down anybody, but also there's a little bit of self-selection where we're likely going to line up or at least be open to having a lot of those conversations, which is why I think it's really important to anybody listening right now that you select your therapist. I understand resources are a concern. I understand if a therapist is across town versus next door, or if your insurance covers them versus not. All of these factors matter, but don't just pick a random therapist. Don't let your insurance agency or some other type of agency or organization randomly assign you to somebody. That relationship is so important because people aren't ready to just work on the random problems in their life. They're ready to work on the problems that they're ready to work on. And so there is no great therapist. There's only a great therapist for you.
Yeah. Well, can I ask this for a follow-up question on that? When people do approach you, I mean, I know you can't tell us too much specifics, and I wouldn't even be asking that, but when people do talk about religious trauma, is it, I imagine it's patient to patient, very specific, but there's a path through right? I mean, if people are suffering from some religious trauma and they're working through it, do they generally report that by consulting with a therapist who specializes in this kind of stuff, that they're able to deal with it, so whatever issues they're having are more manageable as a result of the therapeutic process?
Yeah, I mean, does therapy work? It's a valid question, but the best answer I can really give you is that my pride is such that I would not be able to do this job without anything in the win column, right? Lots and lots and lots of different folks come for different reasons and receive different results. And the temptation for therapists can often be like, well, they weren't ready yet. They weren't, the fact that we didn't get anywhere, make any progress, that's on them. They weren't ready yet. And, yeah, that can be true, but, the therapist has a responsibility here too, to be doing a job. And I just would not be able to do that job if I wasn't seeing results. I've seen those results in my own life. I've certainly seen them in client after client after client. And individual mileage will vary based on where you're at in life, what kind of resources you're working with. If you are wanting to get over a fear of hell, for instance, but you are miserable in a job you can't stand, you're constantly dogged by financial stress, and you are having arguments at home all of the time, it's going to be pretty tricky to make any real traction on some of these like bigger picture sort of items when your day-to-day is really messy. And so that's a factor here as well. But absolutely, therapy changes lives. I wouldn't be doing it if I couldn't say that passionately and strongly.
Yeah, and thank you for what you do, by the way, because that's something that I had a therapist when I was younger for anxiety, insomnia, and it helped me tremendously with why I couldn't get to sleep and things like that, and why I had anxiety. So just from that secular standpoint was just so beneficial. And I didn't, I had a very tame, comparison to what most people go through, right? So, but it was, I could say, at least from my experience, that with that, I can't say that I've had much anxiety since. So, so knock on wood. So, except for when you start the show, and then you get your anxiety gets up a little bit. But
yeah,
that's when it sneaks up on you. You're like, oh, hey, hello, old friend.
Well, guys, thanks for taking my call, and I assume that means that I'm going to see the both of you on the AEN's premiere show, the Nonprofits, in the near future, maybe sometime in July or August, right? I think we can all agree.
Hey,
you can
talk
go
to
in the
our
past.
production
UNY,
team,
maybe?
set it up.
You can even go in the past and check out
All
an
right.
episode that I was on there. So
Mhm.
I will do it in the future as well.
Definitely can. And I'll be seeing you, Jmike, in a few weeks.
Yeah. We're going to tear the house down.
I'm talking. Yes, we are. All right, thanks, guys.
All right.
See you, bud.
Thanks so much.
So let's go to a theist. I see there is
Maybe
I
talk
guess-
to Kevin in New York, or
Yeah, I was trying to figure out. I couldn't tell if that was that's the T
think
for
so.
theist. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, my eyes are just dumb, so my bad.
fair enough.
Sense experience problems.
Right? It's worth
Yeah.
remembering. Hey, Kevin, what can we do for you this morning?
Hey, thanks for taking my call, you guys. I'd like to bring up the subject on the canonization process of the Bible and why I believe it's left up to us to figure out parables and figure out the meaning behind them.
Sure. Can I ask you a question?
First of all, yes.
Do you think parables and things like that are a good way to tell somebody a message, or like a dire message? Like, you would think that that's a good message? I'm just curious on where your take is.
Well, no, because a dire message would imply that it's necessary for it to be known immediately.
So if I wrote you a
So,
poem to tell you your house was on
when-
fire, probably not the best way to do it, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's kind of
Um,
the analogy I'm going to make before you start here, is that, like, if it's up to us to figure out parables, like, I can't think of a worse way to tell somebody that their house is going to be on fire here pretty soon. It's going to get really hot, and I'll write them a poem about
Let me
it.
do an interpretive dance about it.
Yeah, or an
Yeah.
interpretive dance, right? Like, wouldn't it be better to just outright say what you mean?
Yeah, it could, but when we're talking about the Bible here, I'm coming off of the assumption that not only was it applied to the people that it was being said to during that time, but at a time that's far into the future as well.
Sure. How do you even know that what the
I
parables
also
at which we will distinguish are the right ones? How do we know that those are the actual words for us to even decipher in the first place? So I back up a little bit before we go to the route of deciphering the poem that tells us to get out of the burning house. What makes us think that the poem we have was even written by the person that's espoused from? Like, what's your evidence for us to even care in the first place?
Well, first of all, I really think it's necessary to tell you that the early church fathers by no means were correct in compiling this information for us.
You're saying that they weren't correct?
I mean, I think we can
Yeah,
agree on that.
They weren't correct at all.
Yeah, I wouldn't trust hundreds of years removed from the actual events. So what gives you confidence to say that is what was accurately supposed to be depicted in the first place, before we even get to deciphering the meaning?
Well, to get directly to the point, the conclusions that I draw is basically that the Bible is a trilogy.
Yeah, but
in such a way,
Lord of the Rings is a
where,
trilogy, right? So I want to ask you again. I'm not trying that to be mean. I'm just saying, like, that won't add credit to me. It has no has no epistemic weight for me. What actually does is how you know, right? How do you know that what is being said is there? Like, it seems weird to me, right? Because, like, you're thousands of years removed, right? And let's say the most trusted person that you know comes up to you and says, I saw the risen Tupac or the risen Elvis, right? You're probably not going to believe, like, who's the most trusted person that you know? Like your wife or your
family?
Family? Okay. If they told you that, would you believe that claim?
Yeah. Well,
you would.
I mean,
you would believe it off the testimony.
It's
well, here, just walk through me with real quick. I want to do something. But would you believe it? Is it yes or no?
If family told me.
Just off of here,
or
just off the
someone-
testimony only.
Off of testimony only, no.
Okay. So why do you trust anything that Paul or someone would say in which you're 2,000 years removed from the events, but you wouldn't apply the same standard to people that you do know, that you could actually make some testament to their credibility or something like that, as opposed to accepting that the parables were written from people you don't even know that you're 2,000 years removed from? So that's a huge gap that I feel like needs to be
I know that
fixed before we go
Paul
on.
wrote most. I know that Paul wrote most, but not all of the New Testament. But
Sure, but I'm sorry to keep interrupting you.
being
I know
said-
it's frustrating for me to keep interrupting you, but I feel like you're not answering the question. Like, why, if you are 2,000 years removed, why do you trust that? There's clearly there has to be some method at which you've employed to decipher that is the case. So what is that?
Well, because I feel like I have a clear understanding of it now, because in this age that we're living in, we can find out that there was much more that should have been put in to bring it to a better light. You know what I mean? Like, for example,
I mean, so you feel like the Bible that you've constructed, or that we can now construct through different historical documents, etc., is perhaps better than the ones that the Gideons are handing out, but still, why? Like, what the Bible that you've constructed, the canon that you accept, that's based on this, that, and the other thing. Okay, sure, it's better, but how is it good?
well, like something that Eric Murphy had said before really stuck with me, and the question he brought up was like, where did the names of the authors of the New Testament even come from? Which was actually Roman Catholic assignments to the names. But to get to the point, those names, they were just arbitrary. And what I mean by that is that, even though they were given Roman Catholic assignment names like Peter and so on and so forth, what's important is the meaning behind the name. You know what I mean?
What's important is whether or not we have any reason to think it's true. That's what matters. I don't care anything other than beyond a reason for me to think that it's true. And like, I don't know if you're familiar with what's called docile reproduction or editorial fatigue. Are you familiar with those concepts?
No, I'm not.
So it's like a method that's used to kind of decipher Markan priority, which is to say, like, Mark was first. We have examples like in Mark 6 and then Matthew 14. We have the same story of John the Baptist being beheaded, right? And so Herod Antipas is referred to as a king in that, which is wrong historically. Like, he was a tetrarch, he was a ruler, which the difference is that he's a ruler of a fourth of a province. And so what you get is in Matthew them changing this to tetrarch, right? So now you have him deliberately changing it to fit antiquity. And then having it in 14:9, he reverts back to Mark's wording. And this is where the editorial fatigue comes in. He's using the source, right? We can see this plain as day in several examples, to where he goes back to in 14:9, he says the king was deeply grieved. He has no reason to say the king was deeply grieved. He would have kept with the same language as a tetrarch. And the reason I bring this up is just to say we can look at
borrowing from another text then.
Yeah, well, what my thing is that we can look at these and decipher the priority of it. We can decipher the double traditions, things like that. We can, from my perspective, if you're into Q source and those things, we can pretty much show that there's no reason to have a hypothetical source that we don't even know exists when we can take like the double tradition elsewhere. But point being is that we have all these methods at which to decipher. Well, the reason I'm saying is that if they're anonymous, then we have examples of the text being changed, and then you're 2,000 years removed, and then you have the church fathers that I think you even admit are hundreds of years removed. It doesn't seem like you have really any good reason to attest to it. It seems that there's only reasons that go against the claim of validity. Like, where would you push back on?
Well, let me bring this up to you, because parts of the New Testament say 2 Peter. 2 Peter, if you read that over quickly, it basically endorses the book of Jude. but the Book of Jude directly uses apocryphal text. It actually quotes it. And the reason why I bring that up, that's basically to denote that the apocryphal text preceded the author of the New Testament, and so that it was relevant, and that's what they went by during those days. And that the church fathers were incorrect by dating them to approximately 3rd or 4th century, I think.
Okay, and so it sounds like through all that, I don't have any reason to think that, like I said at the beginning, that this was written by who you think, or whether it was true, or what I'm even supposed to decipher the parable. So
it feels like you're really discrediting your own book here, which I'm fine with, but I'm ultimately trying to get to the so why of it. Like, we've hit you with a couple of questions here. I hope you've gotten a chance to kind of get your piece out, but I'd love to kind of check in on why any of this stuff matters.
The why was the reason why I brought up the names of the New Testament authors and why they're arbitrary is because the meaning is what's important behind all of it, not the names.
Okay, but what is the meaning of it, and why is that meaning important? The stories within the Bible, why should I read the Bible or whatever version of the Bible and care?
Well, yes. If it wasn't something that works consistently, then it wouldn't be worth bringing up. Like, for example,
is there any version of the Bible, past or present or future, that contains information that is useful or vital to my life? And can you point at that information? You can tell me how to interpret it. You can tell me which version to read. You can tell me what to throw out. I'll let you just completely edit everything and completely curate this experience for me. I still need you to find something that has value for me.
Well, I mean, I can give you homework, but I don't know if you.
I think ultimately they're just better books, books that have been better edited, better written, and that make a hell of a lot more sense and that can contribute better to our moral growth. But Jmike.
Well, no, I'm sorry. And let's skip all the, with that, like why? Because I feel like this is easier. Why would you think it's true? What reason do you have? Does it generate novel predictions? Does it explain the world around us? Is it the best model that explains the world around us? Because as far as I can tell, it does a horrible job at that. So why should I believe it? Why do you believe it? Before we can even get to what you're deciphering the parables are, or whatever it is, like, what epistemic reason do you even have? Like, what justifies it?
I apologize. It's going to be just a tiny bit of mental gymnastics, but within the Bible, Peter represents the church, and just like Jesus represents the Word, the interactions between Peter and Jesus is also the interactions between the church and
where's
the Word.
Where's the source that you're getting that from, though? Right? Aren't you just being viciously circular to appeal to the thing at which you're trying to prove?
No, it's not something that I'm pulling out of thin air. This is just using.
Wait, so you would agree though that it's independently verifiable, right? Because you're mentioning these things, and the context that we're using is the book, right? But then you go to contents within the book, what Peter wrote or what Jesus said. But like, if I give this example a lot, but if I want to explain to you
the Apocrypha is unverifiable.
Hold on. If I give you something like a biology book, and I say evolution's true, and you go, how do you know it's true? I go, I read it right here in a biology book. That's not a good answer. What's a good answer is, I can actually go into nature, and we actually have a thing called the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium. We can see if evolution's occurring and at what rates, and we can detect whether there's a frequency of allele distribution in a population, right? Like, we can do things independent. I can look at vestigial structures of organisms, or like, there's independent things of what does the justifying. I don't need the book. I don't need the claim. The claim is not evidence. It's just the claim. So when you revert back to it, you just go back to the same thing. Like, what is your independent evidence? Because if it's true, then it shouldn't. First off, we should have no problem investigating it. And two, it should be abundantly clear. So what is that independent evidence you're using?
Well, I kind of think it's a little bit of a language problem when it comes to deciphering the Bible. Because just like what you guys were saying.
So then how do you know it's true?
Show, I thought about it. I thought about it a little bit, and if we were to believe that there's some type of a higher knowledge out there who is trying to show us the right way of living, so on and so forth.
But I don't believe that though.
That being was supposed to. Well, just from the Christian perspective, I'm talking about.
Sure, but that's only if we beg the question from the Christian perspective.
True.
That's what Jmike has been asking you for the last 10 minutes here. Is like, why should we start from that premise? Why should we believe that?
Well, if we're speculating on whether it's true or not, then
it should be independently true and verifiable, right? Can you name me something that we know to be true that isn't independently verifiable and goes through, like, why is it that when I talk about allele frequencies or talk about anything, why do I have to go through the rigorous testing of science? Why do we have to do that? Why do you get to sidestep the process? It's so frustrating to me. And I'm not doing this towards you, but it's when I ask you for your justification for the belief at which you hold, you're not doing anything to justify it. You beg the question. And if I had done that to you, if I had gone to you and pulled out a biology book and let's say something was wrong about evolution, right? And I just chalked it up and I said, oh, it was a parable or a metaphor. It's not actually what it meant. Doesn't that seem like a cop-out that I could use anytime I want to in the back pocket? And then try to relate that to the Bible and see if that's not what we're doing. So, like, what is the independent evidence?
Well, I mean, I agree with what you guys are saying and everything, but I tend to think that kind of works with anything in life, that it's left up to the individual to figure it out.
No, it's up to the independent. It's up to the verification. Yeah. We have a peer review process. So this is what weeds these types of things out, where we can post hoc rationalize anything. There's a term in the philosophy of science called the problem of underdetermination. What that means is that you can essentially assess with any set of data, you could just come up with a hypothesis. Like, you could just do it for anything. You could explain whatever you want a different way. Nobody cares about the post-dictions, what you do. People care about the novel predictions. So when you say it's up to this, no, it's not. We make the novel predictions. They produce some result. We try to peer review and falsify it, which goes back to the whole rigorous process I'm talking about. And so we'll see if there's some bias or there's some variable that was, put in there by operator error, right? We do this enough times where that's the case. We do this with the Bible, and we can't even verify it, let alone get to a process of peer review. And then half the claims are unfalsifiable, and it just puts itself in a pseudoscience camp. And so then I'm asking what the justification is. It seems like the only thing we can do is just basically go screw the reliable epistemological framework that science or something else uses, and let's insert something that doesn't actually provide any results. And that's not something I can get on board with. And it sounds like to me, like, I feel like you recognize that. I feel like I can feel it off of you. You recognize it's not a good way to determine truth, but I don't want to speak for you.
Well, to tell you guys in the first place that there was information missing, that is the truth itself. In this day and age that we're living in, and our ability to find out what that information is gives us the ability to give it more integrity that had existed in the past.
I mean, if you're telling us that we can improve upon the Bible, like, I don't entirely disagree, but you still have to give me something to work with. You have to give me some reason to believe that book is worth investigating. Now, I'm all for archaeology and the sort of the forensics of, like, trying to understand where the Bible came from and who wrote it and all of these sorts of things. But just saying that the Bible is imperfect in its current form doesn't give me any reason to believe that there is a right or true or correct or useful, let alone perfect version that has ever or ever will exist. So I appreciate you calling and kind of pointing out some of these flaws, but I don't know that they lead to the conclusions that you're suggesting that they do. And I don't know. I might encourage you to watch back this clip a little bit and see some of the questions that we answered that you didn't really feel prepared to answer. And I get that. Like, it's tough to be on a show like this. It's tough to, the anxiety and the nerves of it all. But maybe sit with some of those questions and see what kind of answers you have that satisfy yourself, and really ask yourself if this is a book that is worthy of your pursuit.
Okay. All right. It was a pleasant call. Thanks for taking my call, Shane.
Yeah, thanks for calling. And if I got heated, I'm sorry. Nothing towards you. It's just, I'm passionate about this, defending the standard at which we come to knowledge, and the ones that are offered up as alternatives. Just, to me, it's on par with listening to the conspiracy theorist tell me some story that he believes in. There's nothing that does the justification. That's nothing as insult to you. It's just, that's just the belief. And, we should all look at our beliefs and not take them personally and look at them to see if there's validity.
Oh, I understand completely. I even though I am a theist, I do enjoy the challenge that you guys bring to the conversation and everything. And yes, my nerves do get to me every once in a while, but there's no personal offense or anything. So. Oh
no, yeah, you're good. And hey, I really appreciate your attitude, and it sounds like you care. Doesn't matter if people disagree. I could feel that you care to look into this, and so I just urge you to keep doing that. And if it's true, then hey, there's nothing to fear from the investigation of it, right? So
fair to say.
Yeah.
All right. Well, take care,
you guys.
You too.
Have a great weekend.
All right. Thanks. You too.
It is time to give a shout out to the patrons. Mm-hmm. I have patrons. Sorry. And I'm excited about this because there's a name on there that I love saying. And I got to say it last week, and I get to say it this week, so I'm happy about it. But our top 5 patrons are Eric Tweet, CJ Dennis, Dingleberry Jackson. Everybody.
There it is.
Balam's Donkey. That's a contender as well. Paul Leah, honorary mention, the great North American Dingalo. So actually it's top 6. So thank you to all the patrons. And again, if you want to help support us on Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/Talk Heathen to me.
And I want to take a quick moment as the host of Secular Sexuality, Thursdays at 7, to just say that I really appreciate the audiences of this show and some of the other shows, because when you join and become a patron and help the ACA keep its doors open and keep the lights on and make sure that we have all of these like fancy lights and microphones and everything else, that bleeds over into making Secular Sexuality go. We're a show with a much smaller audience, but a really important message. And so when folks contribute during a show like this, you're also helping teach sex ed. You're also helping folks who are coming out of religion learn about their bodies, learn about how to embrace their sexuality or how to heal from some of that trauma. So it's something very appreciated.
Yes, indeed. So you want to pick the next caller?
Yeah, sure. I was curious maybe about Moldred in New York.
Yeah, it looks like a good one. Says his path to philosophy is different from Christians. So it's interesting.
I think that may be true of all of us, but I'm really curious about your experiences, Moldred.
Okay, you ready? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Am I on? Okay.
You're on.
I just wanted to make sure. I'm on. Okay, great. I don't know. I grew up as in a family of secular Jews, some of whom were Holocaust survivors, and they were all pretty skeptical. In school, at the Museum of Natural History, I'm not sure which came first. I learned about Margaret Hamilton's book of mythology, and at the Museum of Natural History, I heard all these tales of native people, like of Coyote and the African spider god. and things like that before I really ran into the Jewish religion or the Christian religion or any of those things. And I always read science fiction books. And I wanted to ask, Christy, are you astigmatic?
I'm sorry, say again?
Are you astigmatic? Your eyes?
Yes, yeah, I do have a mild astigmatism. So I know that, I never am going to see perfectly in that way.
Exactly. Half of, a portion of everything that you look at is your imagination.
Mm-hmm. And the truth is that that's true of all of us, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just something that we have to keep in mind and remember that we're making something of a rounding error every time we think we're taking in information. And that's functional. We just want to be aware of that.
Yeah. Okay, well, carrying on. When I ran into other, I explored every religion I could get a hold of. I never learned a lot about Islam until more recently, but all the religious cults and Scientology and New Agey stuff, and plus all my science fiction writing, plus program music. You know what program music is? Like classical music. You're supposed to imagine something going on that the music tells you. The best one is I think it's called Pictures of an Exposition, and things like that. I always had like mental images of what I was reading or seeing or hearing, and things like that. And it was as real as anything else. As far as I'm concerned, the Bible, it was just another book that brought up images, And and then I ran into, then I read the Principia Discordia, and ran into some Taoist philosophies, and sort of came to the conclusion that it's all connected, all back to the singularity. Everything is connected, because if there wasn't for the original singularity that created this particular universe that we live in, none of this else would have happened, real or imagined.
So to try and make sure that I'm keeping up with you, that I understand what you're saying, you're just saying that because there is commonalities between a lot of different creation myths and a lot of different religious beliefs, that all of those things may be sort of imperfect and shades of accurate, but because there is a consistency throughout it, that there's something there that must be true? Is that a fair summation of sort of the philosophy you've come to?
That's sort of a fair summation, but I use maybe logic to evaluate anything.
Maybe logic?
Yeah,
I appreciate that notion.
Yeah, I get that. You would agree though that the problem. Oh, sorry, Christy.
Well, I guess I just wanted to very casually point out at the start here that I think teaching sex ed to middle schoolers will very quickly disabuse you of that notion that consistency means accuracy, because you hear a lot of the same baffling rumors at different schools in different ways that make no real sense, but that are also, if not logical, at least sort of reasonable middle school immature conclusions of just experiencing the same world. If you are 10 years old, 12 years old, and you have a body and it's somewhat similar to every other person's body, you're going to start to make some guesses about that body. And those guesses may look like the guesses that other people are making, even if they are just on their face absolutely silly and ridiculous.
Okay, can I just give you a quick definition of maybe logic?
I personally would love to hear that, but okay.
Yeah, I'm interested in that.
Okay, sure. All right, maybe logic consists of never regarding any model or map of the universe with total 100% belief or total 100% denial.
Can I stop you there?
Probability, not absolute. Applying this. Okay, yeah.
Sorry.
So that's
well, I wanted to say that's
how I think.
well, that first thing you said, I'm sorry, I know I'm cut you off really quickly, but you disagree that science has the same attitude in the sense it's just going to tentatively hold what the model predicts until there's better information or it's falsified, right? So are you saying that you're on board with that? You're on board with that same thing? I'm just trying to understand.
It is the zetetic model method. Yeah.
Okay, I'm just trying to. Yeah, I was trying to see if it's like tandem to that. That's all. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, definitely. Yes.
Okay.
Not absolutes. Applying the zetetic attitude outside of the harder or hard sciences, physics or softer sciences, and then to non-sciences like politics, ideology, jury verdicts, and of course, conspiracy theories. And the zetetic method differs from the usual scientific method in that in using it, one bases conclusions on experimentation and observation.
As opposed to yours, which is?
That is my zetetic.
That is so.
Okay. Yeah. I check out what I see. I tend to take with a higher probability than what other people tell me that they saw or experienced, and what people who seem to know what they're talking about tell me. I take everything with a grain of salt. Maybe logic, but if people sound like they know what they're talking about, I will give them a higher probability than people like William Lane Craig.
All right, so that's where I'm going to push back on you because.
Okay, yeah.
Because I don't know that the weight of the words matter in any way. I don't care how convincingly you can say something or how unconvincing William Lane Craig or someone can say something, which I think is the case. It matters whether or not the independent evidence points to what they're espousing. So I'm curious on that logic because it sounds like you're assigning prior probabilities to your mental state just being confident that person seems like they know what they're talking about. And I feel like that is a very huge flaw in your epistemology if that's the case.
It's a really easy way to get taken in.
Yeah, it's how con men sell their products really easily to people. I mean, they rely on that to get you.
I won't commit to any philosophy if I don't accept more than a 50% probability of it having any truth to it.
Okay, but are you going to take the probability off of just the fact that a specific person said it? Because that's where I'm fighting back on.
Oh no,
has no weight.
I'm not going to assign probability because one person said something. I will assign probability if one person says something and somebody else backs up that statement with facts, or if enough people,
okay.
Though I don't necessarily subscribe to a majority rule because the majority isn't always right. If people, if enough scientists explain quantum physics or quantum mechanics to me, I will begin to credit that there's something to it. But if one person just tells me about biocentrism, I'll say that's an interesting concept, but I don't know how accurate it is.
Well, yeah. So I mean, all it sounds like what you're stating is that you have people that espouse claims, and then you have the independent evidence that backs up the claim. But I would just hope that you're not taking any prior probability assessment or assessment of fact purely based on the fact that somebody said it, or that a specific person said it, or that multiple people said it, because that would be what's called an ad populum fallacy, which is just to state that something is true because a lot of people believe it. That's going to be independent of that. Now, we do need the more peer review and stuff. I agree. That solidifies a belief or knowledge. But yeah, it sounds like you would have an easier way of just saying, people make claims. I don't accept the claim unless you back the claim up, which we're in total agreement. If that's the case, then I wouldn't see anything that's different. And I also don't know that many other people don't take the same route. It's just whether or not they actually apply it all the way through.
Right. Live up to that ideal.
Yeah.
Well, how about Thunderfoot's Basel assumptions?
I haven't watched Thunderfoot in like 3 years, so I couldn't tell you anything Thunderfoot's doing. So I apologize, but
okay. Well, no, he came up with this more than 3 years ago. Basically, the Basel assumptions are that the universe exists. We can learn something about reality. Explanations of reality that have predictive
power.
Predictive something or other. Or predictive power are more useful than those that don't.
Yeah, it's all. So it's going to be based upon what future predictions.
Everything else is speculation. Everything else is speculation. Science is it never stops trying to figure out what's going on, and a religion never stops trying to fill the gaps with God.
It's as simple as we imagine things, right? Every one of us does it. We all can imagine some idea. That might not correspond to reality. In a lot of cases, it does not. So what's the method at which we apply that goes from the imaginative to the actual? And I agree with you. Like I that's to some extent, maybe we press further. I don't know your full thing, but I mean, the best way to decide, for me, I think the best approach or the best way of knowledge, it should be like placing a mirror in front of reality. Right. You're going to have cracks in it, smudges. It's not going to reflect reality necessarily perfect. It'll give you a model or general idea. But the idea is that you want to keep furthering this with novel predictions, right? Or with future predictions, things that give us new information in the future, because then you kind of take those cracks and you clean up the smudges. And then eventually you shouldn't be able to tell the difference between the mirror that's reflecting reality and reality itself, right? The model or the map as opposed to the territory. So it sounds like, I mean, we're in agreement there, but I mean, do you take to some supernatural claim through this? Because we only got a few, we're running on time, and I wanted to try to get to that if we can, if you hold a belief, if this method has gotten you there, that's, I think, what we'd be the most interested in.
Mm-hmm.
If I believe anything, it's that people filter reality through their previous life experiences. Whenever you see or experience anything, your brain says, well, how is that similar to something that happened to me before? And that biases exactly how you react to it. There's reality, and then there's the reality that your mind can accept.
Sure.
Now that's something I would, if I believed anything, it would be that.
Well, I think that there's value at the very least in recognizing the imperfection of the information that we take in. That doesn't mean that we don't have the ability to like really investigate these things and that we can't come to some meaningful conclusions. We don't just get to throw our hands up and say like, well, it's all broken. There is no truth. There's only you and what you make the truth. But, it's worthwhile to notice that those biases exist, even if they don't give us like a free pass to just ignore the whole enterprise.
Yeah. No, every couple of years I wake up one morning and realize there was something that I was filtering reality through that I don't need to do. Mm-hmm. So I've been around for 72 years, and in that time, my viewpoint on reality and the universe has changed multiple times.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing.
10-year-old until now, every once in a while I get new information, and I try to work it into my viewpoint.
Sure. Yeah. No, I would agree for the most part there. I was wondering if you kind of had an entailment that you go to some.
Yeah, I shouldn't.
Sorry, go ahead.
I shouldn't have accepted the word belief because, according to Robert Anton Wilson, belief is a form of brain damage. If you believe something, you stop thinking about it.
No, belief just corresponds to a proposition that you think is true, and then knowledge is you're gonna have something that's gonna be doing the justifying it. But hey, we're running short on time. We're gonna try to take one more call. Though we do appreciate your call.
Thank you for your time.
Absolutely.
Thank
you. Take care.
Let's try to get Eddie in.
All right. Well, Eddie, it's got to
call.
be all gas, no breaks. We're close on time, so let's get right to the meat of it. What's on your mind?
Let's do it.
Well, I definitely want to do a real quick shout out. ACA, big part of my life in the last 2 years. Brand new atheist. Just wanted to share a couple ideas that have kept me. Hey, how you doing?
Good. No, sorry, I was just saying nice. Congrats on being an atheist.
Hey, I'm still trying to figure out what's real, dude.
Hey, we all are. I mean, that's the only ones making claims of certainty is a certain camp.
Right, no doubt. But, I just wanted to share a couple of things that I'm definitely, I'm even anti-theist, because if you try to apply any of the implications in any known religion, it's inhumane, in my opinion. But a couple of things just keep me from completely negating the idea of a supernatural. And one of them is, like I was telling the call screener, my brain says that there must be some form of life that my existence is contingent upon, that I don't have a mechanism or a method to detect yet. And it would be arrogant and irrational for me to assume that does not exist. So
I can tell you already that there are bacteria in your gut that we haven't necessarily identified and isolated and labeled, and that are vital and necessary to the breaking down of the foods that you consume and that allow you to exist. So, really quickly, I think we can confirm that that's true to an extent, but I'm curious maybe the angle that you're taking it from.
Yeah, are you going to by contingent, are you going to kind of think the distinction between things being contingent from some necessary thing, and for the viewers, contingent is just going to be kind of things that could be otherwise, as opposed to the necessary thing, which some people would say is God, and then all contingent things come from. Is that kind of the route you're going?
Well, yeah, kind of. Because if I can see it on one end of my observational spectrum, in the micro, and they can be considered extremely intelligent, considering what they need to do, and as far as evolving quickly and all that. Wouldn't it be arrogant to say that doesn't exist on the macro scale? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, there's actually you brought something up to me real quick, and I don't want to forget. But you said at the beginning of it, you said. That goes to what you're saying is the negation of the supernatural. You don't do that. Unless you're a metaphysical naturalist, which what that means is somebody that thinks there is only the natural world, there is no supernatural.
Right.
I'm somebody that calls myself a methodological naturalist, which is to state, I'm using a method within here. The best way I put this is there's ways I can explain things. Natural, you could tell me that there's another card I need to lift up to explain a phenomena, and that's the supernatural. I leave that card flipped down on the table. I'm not shoving it off the table like a metaphysical naturalist is just going to go, nope, don't need the supernatural card, right? I'm taking the card, I'm putting it face down, and I don't know if I can explain it with something when that's proper. That's not my, I'm leaving it open, but it's not my problem for somebody to say, hey, I have a new tool or a new thing at which I could come to you and, give you a better way of discerning things, or we have supernaturalism or some way to detect that. That's kind of the burden of proof is on that, but you don't have to negate that to be the case. I would openly say it could be the case that Yahweh is just deceiving me my entire life. That could be the case. There's really no logical contradiction there. The question you need to ask yourself is there any good reason for you to believe that? Because if you play the game of it could be this, it could be that, this is like the problem of underdetermination that I said earlier. You can post hoc everything you want to come up with a new hypothesis. What if it's aliens deceiving me? What if Descartes' demons deceiving me? What if we're in the Matrix? What if all these things? But you have to actually have a good reason to believe the claim. Otherwise, you are in an endless battle of near solipsism at that point. And so I would urge you to look at the claim and see if there's good reasons for it. Not saying, how do I kind of figure out how to debunk the supernatural or something?
Well, no, I mean, I'm with you on that. I mean, believe in things that have warrant belief. I mean, okay, I get that. And that wasn't what I was saying. What I was saying is, if I can demonstrate on the microscopic scale that there is intelligent life, a form of life that my existence is contingent upon, then am I irresponsible in the
inferring it to the whole? It's
the same thing on the macro scale, something on the other end of my observation.
So that is actually fallacious. So there's actually a fallacy for that. It is called the fallacy of composition or the fallacy of division, depending on which way you go. So what that means is that you look at something and you're inferring based on some property that is shared there, right? You're saying, oh, this property shared between the part or this small thing. What if that's the case for the entire whole? Well, that doesn't work, because I could just look at a chair and go, well, the chair's legs are made of wood, so the entire chair is made of wood. No, probably not. Or I could go to Walmart and say, hey, there's a group of people, and I know they're a family, so that must mean every group of people in here are families. Nope, some of them might be groups of friends. To infer that to go from there to there is fallacious. There are times at which it is true that the part shares the same property as the whole set of things. But there's no reason de facto to just decide, oh, here's the part, that must be the case for the whole, because we can list hundreds of examples of where that fallacy comes into play. But I'd suggest Googling or looking into the fallacy of composition or composition division fallacy. That seems to be the error in that reasoning.
Yeah, no, I definitely will. I'll look into that, and it's just, something that plays in my head. Like I said, I'm still trying to figure out what's real and what's not.
It sounds like you care.
But I did have.
That's the biggest part of the battle. I appreciate that you are asking these questions and working through some of these things. So thank you for joining us in that journey.
Yeah, no, hey, it's a privilege, actually. I've been listening to you guys for, like I said, about 2 years. I'm a first-time caller, and I will say that there's a lot of people at the ACA who have earned my respect, and I'm not too familiar with you two gentlemen, but it's a privilege.
Well, hey, you're a first-time caller. I'm a first-time hoster in this seat. I've been on the guest side, so we're kind of together on this. So.
Yeah, so after you're done Googling all the homework Jmike gave you, check out Secular Sexuality. Great show.
Ooh.
All right. Well, I don't think we meant to end the conversation there, but I suppose, we're ready to wrap it up for the day.
We're running that time. So speaking of, where can people find you now that it's a kind of good segue to get into that? Christy?
Yeah, please. I mean, every Thursday night at 7:00, we're Secular Sexuality. You'll see a lot of great ACA folks filter through, but we also do a lot of interviews with folks from the porn industry or folks from sex work industry. We've talked to doctors and hypnotists and performers of all different sorts. And we answer all of your questions about how we should be thinking about our sexuality and how we should be maybe trying to reshape our world to better accommodate people of varying sexualities. And it's just kind of a lot of good, dirty, clean, dirty, mostly dirty fun.
Yeah. And if you want to check that out, please go subscribe and like to that, because that helps out so much, especially in the algorithm. And again, for us as well, if you haven't liked or subscribed, do that. If it interests you to support us, you can actually hit the join button below the video, become a member. You can go to our Patreon at patreon.com/Talk Heathen to me, which is a great way to make yourself even known on the channel, like Dingleberry Jackson, right? So we also got the podcast. Like I said, too much hair for you. You want to maybe just get rid of it, shed it all off. You can go to tiny.cc/AEN podcasts, listen to that in the car, wherever you go. And again, the Facebook, which I have to reiterate, is a really good tool to reach out to other people in the community. That's at facebook.com/talkheathenfg. We also have another fan-run community, Discord ACD, which we will be going to Discord after the show at tiny.cc/ACA Discord. And remember, right after this show, the new version of the Nonprofits will be airing. And you heard Johnny P earlier, so he's a great guy, and that department of, if you want to go check out the Nonprofits, he's kind of the starter of the new version. So go support him in the ACA. I want to give a huge shout out, because if the crew did not exist, then we would just be two hairy guys in a room talking in our bedrooms to nobody. So I want to pan to the crew camera and give a shout out to everybody that is behind the scenes.
Hey, thank you all so very much.
And we are going to send some love rings to the crew, send some love rings to essential workers like Uber drivers, people in hospitals, trash people, anyone that's doing the work that we need to get things going the way it is. We are sending those. We're already sending them. We're sending them. They're before us. Boom. And again, if you do not believe, this is your community. We're here to support, love anybody that, is kind of in this issue of not knowing where they're at. And, this community is here for you. You don't have to think that you don't have anywhere to go. And so I just want to remember that. But,
I feel like the through line for a lot of what we talked about today was just acknowledging that, a scientific worldview is in knowing that there are things that we don't know, or things that we don't understand, or things that we misunderstand. And that's just part of it. So there's no barrier for entry, and lurking in some of these Facebook groups and some of these other things is actually a great way to become more familiar, more comfortable.
Yep, you'll see that there's no true atheist or any of that. We're all different. I mean, you might look at us too and go, "Oh, do I have to have long hair and a beard?" It's like, no, that's not the case. You don't have to. It's okay. But if you do believe, we do not hate you. We are just not convinced. So thank you guys. We will see you next Sunday. Take care.